how can I experience someone else's grief if I can't even experience my own grief?
Yeah, it is
And
very connective.
this episode is about post-traumatic wisdom and why the common narrative of bouncing back stronger misses the full truth. It matters because healing isn't just about resilience or perspective. It's also about grief, surrender, and the wisdom that comes from metabolizing what trauma once made unsafe to feel.
Welcome to Trauma Rewired. I'm your co-host, Elisabeth Christoph, founder of BrainBase.com, an online community where we use applied neurology and somatics for resilience, behavior change, and personal growth. And I'm also the founder of the Neurosomatic Intelligence Coaching Certification, an ICF-accredited course for coaches, therapists, and practitioners to bring the nervous system into all of the good work that you do.
And I'm your co-host, Jennifer Wallace. I'm a neurosomatic psychedelic preparation and integration guide, and I bring your nervous system into peak somatic experiences so that you can feel the wisdom, embody the growth, and create a life that you desire.
With somatic expert and NSI certified practitioner Veronica Rottman, founder of Soma School, we'll explore the difference between growth and wisdom after trauma. Together, we'll unpack why wisdom includes humanity, loss, and identity shifts, and how understanding the female nervous system, neuroscience, and emotional processing give us a pathway to integrate our experiences, including pain, rather than bypass it, to transform growth into embodied wisdom.
Veronica, I'm curious, from your perspective, how can somatic practices help someone shift predictions that their nervous system is making so that post-traumatic wisdom becomes available?
Well, the way I see it is we really need, especially for the female nervous system, in tiny amounts to increase our nervous system's ability to perceive safety instead of threat over time. And this takes time. This takes gentle amounts at a time, because if we pump the brakes too soon, it can create the opposite effect, right? Lead to more activation. And for the female nervous system, our primary regulator is oxytocin. I really like to emphasize that we not only need more parasympathetic downregulation, it also holds the element of relational connection, right? Oxytocin is this neurotransmitter that is elicited through deep emotional connection with the self. It's not just, we don't have to do it with other people. I know there's lots of people out there who live alone. You can elicit oxytocin through gentle self-touch, through feeling your own emotions, but also with pets, with nature. And especially when you have attachment trauma, it can be tricky experiencing it with others. So just know that if you experience that, it's not something that you have to have other people to feel in your body. So when we titrate that, to quote Peter Levine, in the right amount, we establish enough safety to then go into the activation so that our nervous system can begin to predict, as you said, Jennifer, more accurately, that our grief, that our rage, that our terror, whatever it is we're processing, is safe indeed to digest, to metabolize. And what happens is when I have been with I'm just going to use grief, let's go with it. If I have been with my grief enough to the point that I not only cognitively know my grief is a physiological sensation. So for those who are listening, I can say that all day. It's grief isn't, a narrative. It's a physiological sensation, blah, blah, blah. And you can hear me say that as many times as you want, but until you feel it and you have the experiential understanding of that, it's very different. But once you have that, you can enter into life and into relationships wholeheartedly with that vulnerability, because you can survive it, because I have been with my grief before. And so even if I get my heart broken again, which, our hearts are going to hurt in life, that's going to happen. People die. The list goes on. I don't need to name it all. And you can survive it because you've been there before and you felt, oh, grief is this heaviness in my chest. And when I place a hand on it and I give voice to it or move it, and I feel it move down, and I breathe, I know it deactivates eventually, right? So when I know that, I can trust that I can handle life and I can handle relationships, and I'm able to enter into it and share that with others, right?
Mhm.
And speak to grief in this way where I don't need to know so much about it, but
Mhm.
uh I can invite others into a relationship with it.
Grief
Yeah.
is really connecting, I have found in the journey of just what life is, right? Because we're always going to experience loss,
Mhm.
and it's something that connects us. And so how can I experience someone else's grief if I can't even experience my own grief?
Yeah. It is
And
very connective.
Yeah.
yeah, and we listened to a podcast not long ago, and it was called Grief is the Medicine. Like,
Mm.
something happens, the way that we take care of ourselves is to grieve.
Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm.
So many thoughts are coming up, especially when you were talking about the dissociation that occurs and, as in the way that we predict emotions and um, the way many of us come into this work being very dissociated, intellectually understanding that grief is something that we feel in our bodies and that it is a physiological event, but not being able to have that embodied experience safely. So just want to highlight like the importance of like minimum effective dose emotional processing, creating regulation and safety through that so that we can um, have these experiences that really lead to the wisdom. And then as you were talking, Veronica, about that dissociation, what came to my mind, and this is something I'm probably going to really butcher, so some listener might know this story better than me, but I was thinking of like so much post-traumatic growth. You hear about people being resilient and strong and the things that they accomplish
Mhm.
after their trauma. And I remember
Mhm.
listening to Dr. Vincent Folletti, who was behind the ACE score development of that test, talk about a woman who had a severe childhood history of trauma and went on to become a judge and was very accomplished and like rose up in the ranks and in spite of all of this trauma. But at a very young age, she got very sick. She had like 3
Okay.
different types of cancer. There was a high mortality rate. And I think there's just such a difference between this idea of like, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And like you push through a new, even the like, I can intellectually understand more, have more knowings from these experiences, and I'm proving how courageous and strong I am versus the different kind of courage of like coming back into the body and processing emotions that really opens the door for, yes, the post-traumatic growth and wisdom, but also a deeper level of health and
Yes.
modulation, right? Not necessarily regulation, but modulation, nervous system flexibility.
I so appreciate you bringing this up, Elizabeth, because it's something that I personally have to ask myself. And I also really want to create a collective conversation around this, because what I see is when you have trauma, and one of my teachers, Raja Selvam, brought this up once. It's actually really easy to take the activation of your trauma, the sympathetic charge, and achieve a lot.
Make sure to subscribe to this episode on our audio platforms or hit the little bell on YouTube to subscribe to our channel so that you never miss an episode, because we have lots of exciting conversations coming up, breaking down the science and the trauma of emotional health and nervous system resilience.